What's going on YouTube? This is your boy Paul-Octave Byron Barvell in the real world, making a video where I analyze an article for school. The title of this article is Experienced Teachers' Perspectives on Cultural and Social Class Diversity. Which differences matter? This article was written on 30th of April 2008 by Andrea C. Allard and Allard-Santoro, two teacher educators from Deakin University. I think that's somewhere in Canberra, Australia. That's where they're from and all that. But special shout out, I do know that Deakin was a Prime Minister of Australia, and the university is named for him. So that's some tidbit I know about that. But alright, let's just jam right to it. Why did the authors feel it was important to conduct this study, and why did they write this article? Because they felt that the Australian educational system was starting to see more pupils who are not from Britannic backgrounds and those from economically disadvantaged, and as a result they felt like pre-service teachers were not being pedagogically equipped properly to deal with these types of students in their class. What was the main purpose of this article? Why did they study this subject? Basically what they were doing, they were trying to report on a pilot study to investigate the beliefs, values, and pedagogies of high school teachers who are challenged to deal with students with a non-Britannic heritage and those from poor backgrounds. Some key questions from this article are which sociocultural differences are the most important for teachers to comprehend and take into the most consideration when teaching poor or non-Australian native children? Is there an immigrational distinction between migrant children and refugee children? And if this is so, is it their choice or teachers' choices to just survive inside their environment in the classroom? Or do teachers have a responsibility to allow them to thrive in their educational system? What is the true difference between children who have been taken into westernized educational systems and those who have some exposure to it? How do teachers understand non-Western ethnic class or status differences between groups without hampering the child's education or causing awkward altercations of that sort? Is there such a concept as being too unique or unique enough to fully integrate a student into Australia's educational settings? How do we socialize procedures for students to learn who are from non-Western backgrounds? And finally, the last question that I come up with in this article is to what extent might the teachers express beliefs and values work to enable or limit students to achieve socially and academically? Some other information I found interesting in this article was the methods that they used to answer their key questions were that the authors used focus groups and in-depth personal interviews to produce data in a format known as critical discourse analysis, which I thought was very fascinating. The authors took key discourses from 3 key teachers to pull the FOCI groups and interviews into a general pool of knowledge to gather data and draw conclusions from it. The authors interviewed a first-generation Greek Australian, a fourth-generation Anglo-Australian, and a New Zealander who had spent some of his early childhood in Anglophone Africa, but he's been living in Australia since he was 9 years old. That's when his parents immigrated there. The most important information I found in this article was that all groups, including native-born Australians, have pre-scholastic experiences and idiosyncrasies that profoundly impact the early education of pupils. The authors also cited that educators need to cater to the needs of all of this accordingly, and the dichotomy of migrants over refugees needs to be put to bed to stop too leveling students who are from non-Britannic or from low-class backgrounds. And on a side note, I really don't have time to define what class was in this article due to time constraints, but feel free to Google class on any sociological wiki or any other search engine and look up what you think class is. But the article also has some information as to what Australian sociologists feel class is, but due to time constraints I really don't have time to talk about that, but it is a fascinating topic. The results can be put into context by comparing them to high-class non-Westerners to low-class Westerners. And here's an example I come up with. Let's say you have a child who's black, who's from Madagascar, and his parents are doctors, they're physicians. They're going to be highly educated. Is he a refugee just because his country's going through turmoil right now, which Madagascar's not going through anything major right now except for normal stuff that's going on in their country? But would the teacher just put him aside just because he comes from a migrant household? But then again, you could argue the same thing, such as what about Western Australians too, like a couple who immigrate from Ireland. I mean, his dad could work in the coal mines and his mom could work in a convenience store, and they could be middle class people. But is he a migrant just because his family immigrates from another area of the Anglosphere? Which Madagascar is a French-speaking country, but you get the general premise of what I'm saying. My point is simply this, though. They are both migrants, but even if the situation were reversed, and if they were refugees from warring countries right now, or countries that are going through a lot of economic or social turmoil, they need just as much catering, just on different levels accordingly, depending on the needs of the student. What I inferred and concluded about this article is that it is important for teachers to reflect on their own assumptions and beliefs concerning the lived experiences of students who arrive as migrants or as refugees. It is important for teachers to test their assumptions about which pedagogical approaches work for which students, and it's also highly important for teachers to adapt, reshape, and retry teaching strategies in the light of these analyses that they bring before them. If we were to take this line of reasoning seriously, we can imply accordingly that each student is unique, even students who are native born in your own country. This just doesn't have to be with Australia. It could be for the United States or any other country. And it is very important for teachers to meta-reflect their own students. It is a must if we are to be the best teachers. And any procedure can be properly socialized if the teacher attempts to reach out to any student's needs. Meta-adaptation, meta-reshaping, and a sense of collective retrying upon all their students in their classroom is also a must. I would argue so much that teachers need to be mini social scientists in their own rights in order to educate every student to the best of his or her abilities. Always be eager to test and never take anything for granted in the classroom. Never assume you know a kid's background, because nobody is the same. Everyone is unique, and you cannot be too unique to be taught to. This article was very good. I highly recommend it if you're going into teacher education right now. Also, I can translate this article into French. If any French educators who are watching my channel or pay attention to what I'm going on in my blogs and other things like that, I'd be more welcome to share my findings and to add subtitles in the French language if you're more willing to do that. But overall, it was a very good article, and I feel like a lot of teachers need to take culture and social class into account when they go into the classroom, and those differences do indeed matter. I salute Mrs. Allard and Mrs. Santoro and all the people and the teacher educators at Deakin University for making this work possible and all the research they put into it. And that's basically all I got to say. Have a good morning, everyone. Paul-Octave signing out. Bon Barvell in the real world for my people at Western.